Hi there, I'm Dr. Chris Moore and I'm the Programme Lead for the Undergraduate Degree in Biomedical Science at UWE Bristol, and this video is going to be about how to semi-automate the processes of module reporting, field boards and award boards. Okay, so here's a brief bit of context about the problem at hand, because of course a lot of my videos are about noticing something not working quite right that maybe holds something else up or prevents us from doing enhancements, and so it's about addressing that much earlier stage in the problem that can then cascade and affect other people. In this case, it is the manual processes involved in things like field boards and award boards, and I've seen this at multiple institutions, particularly those that I externally examine, and talking to colleagues from other universities and hearing about their experiences. So this is by no means limited to just a few places, it's kind of across the board. The reason seems to be that we are beholden to student record systems that are giant databases that perform lots of calculations, contain a lot of information. They are critical for us to do virtually all of the admin at university. But there are often rules and regulations that are semi-modifiable that student record systems can't cope with, and therefore it means that when we're reporting marks into somewhere, that tends to be at fixed time points where an enormous amount of manual admin is done and some automatic admin, that those marks then need to be ratified and confirmed and various rules applied to them, and this can involve PDFs that are unchangeable and static time points and sticky notes and local disagreements and chairs actions and all sorts of things that can just slow up the process. A lot of this is also very siloed, so a module leader will tend to only have access to their module data, and they will only really look at that. Even if they can look at multiple modules, those tend to be in separate places and they would have to open individual things to look at them. Program leaders have that same kind of issue where they need to look programmatically in order to identify best practice, trouble spots and that sort of thing. We also have this problem at award boards where there are certain rules that you can apply that need to have local agreement, and maybe PSRBs, professional statutory regulatory body requirements, prevent those from happening, but the administrative staff, unless local experts, don't always know what those are, and they shouldn't have to know what those are. They also don't have the authority, so to speak, to action those things without the program leader's say so and the chair of the board's sign off. That can slow things down as well. And if we can take better advantage of looking at things across the board, it should help with planning to improve things. And therefore it involves staff being able to look at that information, being able to reflect on other information. So what I'm going to show you now is where I have taken a grade output of an entire program of students at graduating level, and I've automated a whole series of local rules and regulations, academic rules and regulations, and applied some programmatic specificities there. So let's dive in, show you what I've got. So over here, this is basically an access database from the student record system. I've got fictional students throughout here. Okay, they're doing a degree in comicsology, and maybe you'll recognize some of these names if you really dive in and have a look. They've got fake student numbers, all this sort of thing. Okay, and this is the output where there is a row per student per level of study, and this is some of what is generated by the student record system up to this point. You'll notice that around here, DT, TEE, there's a jump, and that's because I've made a whole lot of columns that really are pointless from an academic perspective, invisible, because we don't need to look at them. There might be other elements here that we want to look at. For the most part, everything here we're not actually going to be that concerned with. We're using the information to do some of the things I'll show you in a moment. The columns are filterable, so if I move along here a little bit to level reporting in column AE, I can filter this to one level of study. So if I wanted to look at all of level 3 of the degree in comicsology, we've now got one row for each of my 13 students. Okay. Now what I have done is I have created another massive series of columns, and you can see here that within all the stuff we've got, there is module 4, and these are the headers that came with the database. So module 4, the code of it, the name of it, component marks, which only tend to be shown if they haven't yet been passed, the aggregate for that module, the credits awarded, and then it moves on to the next one. I've used all of those columns to apply a series of outcomes, including PSRBs. So are there any PSRBs? You could put yes or no, and it will then determine what happens here. Can we condone the modules? So do all modules exceed 37%? Are the credits gained more than 90? Is this the first sit? And therefore, can we offer condonation? Everything here is based on a series of this. If this is this, and this is this, and this is this, then this is this. This is a first sit pretend run, and therefore, no matter if we can condone or not, it's in the student's best interest to have a go at the resit, and therefore we're not going to offer condonation. So because the first sit is yes, we're not going to offer condonation. If it was a resit, we might add no, and therefore it would be able to be condoned. In the case of my program, particularly biomedical science, we cannot condone at level 1, and therefore I wouldn't be able to offer condonation anyway. So there'd be this, if this said yes, all of these would automatically be, or this outcome at least, would be no. Okay, so we got there EQ5. If it says yes, you can offer a yes if all those are yes. Therefore, if E says yes, can we offer condonation, then yes. If we can't offer condonation, it really doesn't matter what the other outcomes are, it changes to no. We then move on to the current degree class, and this is pulled from earlier on in the original report. We then move on to borderline. So is the student in an auto uplift area of 0.5% from the next degree classification, or are they 1% from each particular banding? And again, it's a series of if this outcome EV5 is between this and this, then put a yes, otherwise put a no. We then move along and we look at thresholds. If their degree classification is within 1% of each of those bandings, we then look at each individual module to ensure that it is within that next banding. So for example, if the student was within 1% of uplift to a first class degree, we need to make sure that at least 50% of the credits at the graduating level are at that level, are above a first class. And so we look at these, we then look at each of these, and it automatically does all of this, totals how many credits towards 70%, how many credits towards 60%, how many towards 50%, and then it comes over here and says, what will the outcome be here? And it auto corrects it to give a different outcome. So here we've got an original outcome of lower second. And because of all of this that happened in the previous columns, the GN columns and all that sort of stuff, it corrects it to say that actually, yep, they have 50% of their credit, they're 1% away from 60%. They have 50% of their graduating credits above 60%, and therefore they are eligible to be uplifted to an upper 2. I didn't need to look at that myself, it all does it. We then get up to excuse credit or compensation. And again, it looks at how much credit has been passed. 100%, so not a problem there. All the students have passed, but if they hadn't, it would look at things like, are there any local rules that the administration team may not know about that would prevent offering excuse credit or compensation? In this case, for this particular program, they have to pass the project. And so what this does is it looks for, is there any reference to this module name, which is my module code for the project module? Is there any reference to that in any of the modules that the student has completed? If there is, what was the outcome of that? Did they get the credits? If they did get the credits, then it's a yes. It then looks again at other modules that need to be completed or need to be taken and completed in order to achieve the learning outcomes of the program. And in this case, it does the same thing where it searches every module the student has taken for a particular code. There you go. So there's the code there. And if it has done, it gives a yes. Therefore, what it does after this point is it says, has it passed all the cores? Has it passed the compulsories? Is it within the compensation criteria? Yes, then you can apply the compensation excuse credit and give a different outcome. You can do this for every level of student. So I filtered to level 3s, and anything that you paste down there, you can drag it and pull it down all the students, so the same rule applies. But if you go to an unfiltered view, then you'll see that there are blanks. And that's because those calculations have only been applied to all the level 3 rows. The level 1 and the level 2 rows haven't had anything happen to them because I haven't dragged it down through that sequence. Now that's a lot of stuff to look at. Okay, it's a huge amount of data going all across. So instead, what you might want to do is to look up an individual student to get an idea of their overall profile. So a similar thing to what I see as an award board report in PDF. And here it is here. So Hank McCoy, and here is every module they've taken at every level. Okay, so it's using the row for their level 1, a row for the level 2, and a row for their level 3. The key thing here is that everything here would be locked, and each of these cells is pulling on data from that level 3 play space down there. It is cross-referencing the existence of this information and this information, and then pulling on a certain cell. Okay, it also then pulls down the module name, the module grade, and the credits ordered. So if I wanted to get an idea of the student's performance and their degree outcome, and that degree outcome being the one after all the rules have applied, that is my picture of exactly what that student should be based on every regulation, every rule, every variant, all the wiggle room we've got because it's been automatically calculated. You can type in a different student number here and it will give us a different student profile. So for example, if we have a look at Steve Rogers, we'll take his student number there and I can paste this into that box, and there we go. Steve Rogers, upper 2, changed his marks, changed his outcomes, changed the modules depending on what that individual student had done. Now the idea of that is not that it replaces any central systems. The idea is that it gives us almost a replica, a star-facing view of individual student outcomes in order for us to look at those students and know that the information we're seeing is as it should be. That's what we could then report back for the central student information record systems to have inputted. So this will be the classification because we've done all the work. It takes away the need to sit in a board meeting and confirm things that are on a screen. It takes away the need to confirm stuff that we already know. In the digital age, we need far more asynchronous, continuous digital work sign-off agreements and processes. And so this takes away a lot of that. So now we're going to jump to the module view and have a quick look there at something similar that I've created so that it can help program teams and academic teams work these things through together, and again report those marks accurately for field boards and module boards and all those sorts of things. So let's take a look at that. So in this second file, what I've got here is module tabs, and this is a level 1 of a program where the module leader pastes in columns from their grade center, their VLE. In this case for me it's Blackboard. The component marks. Now I could expand this to include element marks, but just for the sake of simplicity in this early version, we have got those same 13 students with their names, their usernames, their IDs, exactly as they appear in Blackboard. They would download the grade center and just paste in that information. It's the same information that they would report back or map for central mark validation, ratification, and boards, and that's what would generate a board report. But the thing is, what a member of staff normally does is that they have to send these marks in, wait for a report to be generated, have that report sent back or put in a central repository that they then go in and then they check that it's correct, that the thing that they did has been properly transcribed. Therefore, what you want to know is, are the outcomes correct for the students earlier than those fixed time points? What all of these green columns do is they take those, they weight the components. You have the actual mark for the component. So here it does the weighting of 50-50 for component A, component B, works out the module grade, and that student, Hank McCoy, got 60.5% for the module, and therefore they've passed. Down here, Samuel Stearns, or 46% for their component A, 37% for component B. Now they passed component A because they got 46. They didn't quite pass component B because they got 37. Therefore the aggregate mark may be just over 40% at 41.5, but one of those components was not passed and therefore the module was not passed. Are the components over 35 and is the module grade over 40? Yes. Is either component over 40? Yes, but they're going to be referred to resit. They don't have to resit A, they do have to resit B, they don't have to resit both, and the outcome is there. Now that might seem like a lot of unnecessary information in those rows, but again, we don't care about this. The module leader will have put this information in here. What we're interested in is this. And this is the same students, but here we've got their module outcomes for each one, and it's pulling on information from that previous sheet, which means it's telling us and them if they've passed or what exactly they need to resit. So resit A and B for John Allardyce. Samuel Stearns, remember how he got 37 and 46, so technically he passed the module with over 40, but one of them was under 37, and therefore he is resitting B for that module. Over in this other module though, so USS KA4, he's resitting A because he only got 35 for component A, but he got 50 for component B. And this can be the same for all of them. So these columns would pull in module information from the other modules. Now this is level 1, which means it is compulsory modules. Whereas if it was level 2 or level 3, there are obviously going to be optional variants. But what you would have is simply these rows continuing forever, and this is for staff to look at to get an idea of individual student performance module to module. So there would be some blanks, but they can just look across and see what their overall outcomes are. Now the other thing that we can have is, and I would do this as a separate file, is a student grade lookup. So here a student can type in their number and it would have all of the modules across here that are available, and it would return their individual outcomes. Okay. Again, if we take the student number, or let's go with Jessica Drew, and we'll paste in Jessica's information here, and we'll just put in the student number, and there we go. It's changed the numbers there of the modules that she did, and it gives the outcomes of a pass. So before a board ratifies things, students can get provisional ideas as to whether they are going to need to resit or pass something long before it officially happens. It just gives them a sense of preparation. Now this is a very early stage. It does everything, almost everything that I need it to do. It does almost everything, in fact I think it does do everything that our central system does from an academic output perspective. Not fee status or visa status or contact addresses or anything like that, because that's outside of the academic area. What this does is help with academic performance of students, modules and programs by only pulling in the information about individual students if it is there for that student, and therefore it gives us a much more holistic overview. This is where we need to be focusing our efforts, not on the administrative processes and verbally confirming that which is clearly available on a screen, but on doing away with all that laborious admin, making work easier for our admin teams so that we're reporting things as they're going to be, so that they can just go into the system and sit there and be done. We can add in things like chair sign-offs. That's easy. With some of my other automation flows, these reports can be turned into SharePoint lists that chair of a board could indeed sign off digitally. They could approve them. They could tick them off. Same process as I showed for assessment offence reporting can generate SharePoint lists in a whole variety of spaces so that departments, schools, colleges can get ideas as to how things are going at programmatic level by filtering and showing the information. And of course through SharePoint lists, different information can be made available in different lists. We don't need all those columns, we can hide them off. Everything that someone shouldn't be editing can be locked in these files. Any spreadsheets they shouldn't see can be turned off. Even with the student view, that small section of an Excel spreadsheet can be made available as an embedded document within the virtual learning environment, possibly at program page level, so that a student can type in their student number and see how they're doing at the time. There are, of course, central mechanisms for providing that information, but those only tend to be grades that have gone into the central student records information system and that are locked. So that was quite a long way of showing you a lot of data stuff, and though it seems unnecessarily complicated with lots of yeses and ifs and whats and that sort of thing, by keeping it that long-winded, it enables us to make more agile changes based on our changing rules and regulations. Each column with thousands of things happening at once, it means that we can't make minor changes as we go through. If, however, you have different columns doing different things based on different rules, if we change a small rule later on, we can make that change there without affecting the whole thing. So it might look a little bit overcomplicated, but it does in fact make things more adaptable for the future, and that's what we need to be doing. Building things that are more future facing and adaptable to change, because change is always coming and it always should. I hope you found that useful. See you again next time.